Well, hey everyone. I had a comment on one of my, I think it was the how to make a bees and wire type one of the fence I made that I recorded because somebody asked me to do that, and there's a knock on from that. Somebody's asked me about my table saw. They're looking at getting either this model or another model. So I said I'd do a little. I don't like to use the word review, but this is what I've got. So these are my thoughts, if that makes sense. So this is specifically for, I hope I get this right, Lake Miandu or Lake Mandu. I'm sorry, I hope I've got that right. I don't know what your actual name is, but you asked me to do it, so here it is. And I'm going to put it on obviously this channel rather than my main channel, because it fits more with the kind of off the cuff stuff rather than projecty type thing. So anyway, the saw is the Makita MLT100, I think. I've had it now for getting off 3 years, I think, or just over 2 or 3 years anyway. I bought it late end of the year, about November time, and it came over here new, and I got it because it was in my price range. It was about what I needed, and I didn't want to spend loads on it. Now, so I've used it quite hard for a couple of years, and most of my projects, if you've seen projects I've done, I've used it in one way or another. Prior to that, I never had a table saw. This is my first table saw. I did a little bit of research into it, and it was basically one of. Well, I got it basically, I think, because it was available from my local supplier, and it was in my price range, and it was about the best I could afford. So you can go and find all the specs on the website for the saw. So I'm just going to do all this off the cuff. First off, it's a site saw. It's not a workshop cabinet saw, so it creates a lot of dust. You can probably see on the windows the dust that it churns up, even though I've got it running on it's a shop vac actually rather than a 4-inch extractor. I've never had it on my big extractor, but it takes the dust away, but there is still a lot of dust, and I'll show you around it with the camera in a second. The sliding carriage that it has, I very rarely use, only for really big bits, and to be honest, I don't really use massive bits because I struggle with them in here because of the size, but also I can get them cut down to more manageable sizes from my supplier. It's a little bit wobbly, as you'd expect, but for kind of first fix rough stuff, it really is nice. But you could take that off and put it into a big bench. I've only really kept it on because it gives me a slightly bigger size. It's got the extension at the back, which I pretty much have out all the time, although it's in a little bit. It gives you quite a bit of space, and then the side wing comes out as well. One thing I find, if you need to do wide things and you've got the fence on the extension wing, you can move the extension wing out, so you just have to double check I just use the scales that are on here, make sure they're the same, and then double check the measurements. So the little bit of it's not quite as as fine as a 2 or 3 grand saw as one would expect. Sometimes the fence itself you can find a little bit wobbly, and that needs a little bit of checking. But at the end of the day, you get what you pay for, and I actually, bottom line, I really like this saw. It's like anything; it's got its little fiddly bit. So I upgraded the fence, and if you haven't seen the video of fence, it's on I think it's the most viewed one on my main channel. So that's that. Okay, that's probably a bit better. So the insert plate that it comes with is quite a flimsy bit of plastic, and it spends most of its time in here. I don't know if you can get replacements, but because I get quite extreme temperature in here, being a glass room, my one's warped slightly because it is quite thin plastic. Now, I haven't really found it to be a major problem, and if I'm doing some really fine cuts, I actually made a zero insert plate for it out of some plywood. The problem is, well, the problem I found at least, is the way that it supports. It's not like those nice, and I'm really envious of you guys with like big American table saws where it's got that sort of oval shape. Just in and out, but this has got a real, I don't know if you can see that, there's loads of little cutouts in there for the aluminium, because it's an aluminium top, not cast iron top, the shape, the moulding of it, or the casting of it is quite. So that was quite a laborious task, to be honest, but it does work really well as a zero insert, I should say. What I do find is, because it's a side saw, not a cabinet saw, it does create a lot of dust, and with the zero insert in, it tends to chuck the dust out down my front and down a bit here, and then for some reason it throws it out here before it has a chance to go around and be caught by the extraction, or a lot of it does. And you can tell if there's no extraction in here, you forget to put it on, it goes everywhere. So there are posts, and one of the things I'm looking to do with this is to put it on a different base, because it actually sits on the workmate, so it's all completely open underneath and all the dust falls through the bottom and goes everywhere. So the extractor picks up a lot of the dust, some of the dust, a percentage of the dust created, but there's still a lot left over. So I'm going to close in all the bottom, and I actually saw a post where, if you can see the bit at the back here of the port, there's a big hole here, to get some rubber or something with a slit cut in it for this, so that it closes off that hole and obviously helps catch the dust. And then also the gaps where the table sits on the body, because it's only a plastic body, all the way around the outside and under the front here, and around the same loop around the angle bit, to close all that in and try and keep the dust inside the saw, and then box in the underneath with a drawer for dust and all that good stuff. So I think that'll improve the quality of the air in here, but again, you just kind of do it. I have had it on site a couple of times. When you're working outside, it doesn't matter, all the dust just falls in and you sweep it off. So on the whole, it's a good saw. I've made kind of the usual. I've got a cross-cut sled, I've got a beveled sled and a mitre sled for it, and the tracks are quite good for that. They've actually got, rather than a square box section, they've got like a almost like a T-nut type thing, and the mitre gauge, I don't use it very often, but it's designed with a little lip so you can't just lift it out. It does travel, and again, there's a bit of play in there, but it's okay for rough stuff. You know, if I'm rough cutting things to length, then I'll use that. That's fine. The gauge on it is actually fairly accurate, as long as you bear in mind the play, basically. So you can get within a couple of degrees, but sleds are obviously the way to go better. You know, it's a nice saw. You can accurately, or you can zero in on the gauges and the fence. So there's adjustment on there to do that for different blades. I have actually changed the blade, and also, while we're talking about the blade, the knife. This is an aftermarket blade I've got in at the moment, and I changed the knife. It used to come up higher than the blade, and then it had like a little clip on it for those plastic covers. I found that the plastic cover just got in my way and was annoying, and it actually meant I thought it was more dangerous to have it on than off. So, you know, I leave that up to the user to decide whether they want to use it or not. Obviously, it comes with one, so you're not going to touch the blade when it's spinning. But I personally found it to be more of a pain than a hindrance than a help. So what I did was I actually cut it with a hacksaw and then filed down the edge, so that the knife is slightly lower than the top of the blade, only by a hair. And that was so I could put the sleds on it, because obviously when the top here, you can't, it gets in the way of the sled, and you lose obviously a lot of depth of cut. So that was one modification I made to it. That was quite early on, actually. Okay, so there's a little storage thing I was talking about, and it comes with a 90-45 thing, and there's a bit in there. I think I've got one spare blade in there, and you just undo that and it pulls it out, and there's a spanner stowage and then a stick bit as well. I don't use the stick very often. I prefer these that I just make out of MDF, and then it doesn't matter if they get all churned up, and I can hold it right on the top. I think I've got a few of those under there that are in various states of repair. You can see this was actually cleaned out very recently. I think I've used this for about 3 cuts, and there's a lot of sawdust created under there, but you see how open it is. Needs obviously the dust putting in, and these are the holes I was talking about to block up later on. But yeah, the switch, it comes with your normal no volt switch, and all I've done is I've just screwed on a piece of timber under here into the aluminium on a little bit of hinge, and then it just comes down, so I can push in here to turn it on, but then just by knocking this, it presses on the red button and knocks it off, so I can actually do it with my knee. That wasn't my idea, that came from the team woodworker, Alex Harris. That was a great idea. I don't know where he got the idea from, but that I'd recommend to everyone. It works really, really well. The locking mechanism on here is quite straightforward. The running of it is quite smooth, and obviously you can adjust the angles, but it's quite a fat point, so I tend to use a little bevel box just to double check if I want really accurate cuts. I said this is a smooth running. Sometimes I find the blade raising. See, there we go, look, it's quite stiff. I think that's because it tends to be more stiff going up than down, but you can take the insert plate off and just clean out the mechanism to do that. So I think that's because there's a lot of dust sitting in there. But bottom line, for the money, it's a good saw. I mean, I've been using it now for 2, maybe 3 years, and I really like it. But I've got no association with Makita. It's just that happened to be the model I got. So they're my thoughts. Apologies for not knowing your real name, but Lakemen do. But hope that answers your questions, or maybe food for thought. Anyway, so let me know what saw you get, and don't forget to post a picture of it on the Facebook page. Link in the bottom. So thanks for watching. I hope it wasn't too boring or waffly. If you're interested in this saw, or just interested in watching the video, then I hope it has been of some use. And please do like and subscribe. Also, my other main channel, if you've stumbled on this video, then my main channel is more woodworking videos. So thanks for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.